Well, a warm welcome to everybody this evening. Thank you ever so much for joining us for World Jewish Relief's briefing event on current and past events and activities in Ukraine. As I'm sure our panel will outline in more detail this evening, the ongoing events in Ukraine are far more complex than simply an issue of being pro-Russian or pro-European, or simply about Ukraine splitting east and west. And I hope tonight's panel will help us get under the skin of what's happening in Ukraine and present and help us understand the complexity of the context simply.
Now let me start with a comment that Vladimir Putin made yesterday in his very memorable speech. Quote, "We are not merely close neighbors," here he's discussing Ukrainians and Russians. "But as I have said many times already, we Ukrainians and Russians are one people. Kyiv is the mother of Russian cities, ancient Rus is our common source, and we cannot live without each other." There are a few things I'd like to say today. One of them is simply Ukrainians and Russians are, of course, not the same people.
The first is just to give you a sense of the economic crisis in Ukraine in numbers, just so you get a flavor for what exactly the country is facing. The second is a very quick back-of-the-envelope kind of analysis of how they got there. So how did this happen, that Ukraine is in the kind of trouble it's in today? Third is what the new government in Ukraine is trying to do to get them out of the mess they're in. And finally, just a few words on EBRD activities and what we're doing to try and help a global effort to support Ukraine.
In the longer term, the EU in the last 6 weeks has shifted its language. Up until about 6 weeks, up until 2 weeks ago, it spoke about the association agreement as the end of the process for the EU and the Ukraine. It stopped doing that now. It started to talk about a longer process. But where that journey ends is a really difficult question to solve, and we haven't found an answer to it in the last 10 years, so it's not clear to me what the answer will be now. One possible end of the journey may be some form of associate membership of the European Union. And one of the things that the EU is now moving towards is a two-tier structure where some forms of associate membership are possible. And in fact, we in the UK might find ourselves a decade from now on that second tier. And the thought I would leave you with is that one possibility is that alongside us on that second tier, we may find some version of the Ukraine.
That he would protect us. You know, we have a joke here that it's Odessa, and one Jew says to another, "You know, Chaim, I'm trying not to speak Russian anymore. I'm trying to speak Ukrainian." "Oh, Moisha, what's going on? You're afraid to be beaten for your Russian?" "Not. I'm afraid to be protected for my Russian."
I've been to Ukraine twice in the last 2.5 weeks. First time on the day Yanukovych fled and was ousted from the parliament, and a week after was after Russia actually invaded military to Crimea. And the sense in the streets is a mixture of shock and disbelief. Ukrainians are quite peaceful by nature as a country, and they're not used to violence in the streets, and the idea of violence is very foreign to our partners.
What's happening now and what's been happening really throughout the 20th century, but especially since Ukrainian independence, has been an extraordinary amount of collaboration between Jews and Ukrainians. Julia will talk more about this, but you saw Jews getting up on the Maidan. Prayers for peace were offered up by rabbis. There was an open letter to President Putin signed by many of the leading Jewish figures in Ukraine. So you actually see very strong support for a westernizing movement among a number of the country's minorities.
Rabbi Aaron Troy is the rabbi from Zaporozhye in southeastern Ukraine, who's just in London for 2 days, just happened to be here at the same time.
In Ukraine, there's one law. The first law, there's no laws. That's the idea. So the problem is right now, there is a big solution. In every community is divided. Some of the supporters, they are keeping with the Maidan. The other ones are keeping for European Union. But from our side, we are attacked with the cocktail Molotovs, 7 battles. And thank God, no one was attacked. There was no people in the night when it happened in the shul. But there is a big worrying, as we're being saying here, that the older generation, they thinking maybe it would be better when it would be again the Russia. But the younger, mostly of the younger, they're not pro-Russia.